David, what did you make out of that? You look pretty frustrated in the box at times, but then they seemed to fight it out pretty well in the last quarter.
Yeah, I was, Shane. We'd only had 7 tackles in that second quarter, which was really poor. I think we'd ended up with 5 or 6 guys had 2/3 of our tackles. That was a frustrating piece. We didn't bring that pressure that we wanted to. And look, credit to the Saints. They owned the corridor. They forced us to go a bit wider. They slowed us down on our ball movement. And look, second half we won, but yeah, we're still chasing that consistency of that 4-quarter effort. So that's obviously the frustrating piece.
What's your message to the group when they are stifling your ball movement, David? Because it seems, that balance between taking those options and trying to be safe sometimes is a bit out of whack.
Yeah, it's our biggest growth area, I reckon, Pete, our ability to understand how we need to move. So it's not the guy that's providing the first option, it's the other guys in there that sometimes crowd us up a bit. And we need to understand how those mechanisms work. We've got a couple of different modes that we like to play with. One's a little bit of speed, and certainly we want to attack and come through the corridor. I mean, I think if you keep in mind the corridor, we're not necessarily saying the centre circle. There's probably a 70-metre width through there that we want to get into. But I think it's some of those mechanisms that we aren't doing and not working hard enough to create those gaps in through, either the forwards working, the mids working, allowing the backs to come up, or vice versa. So that's probably the biggest area for growth, I think, in our ball movement sector.
Brett Ratton just said that he thought Bailey Scott had no interest in going for the footy, but obviously did a pretty good job on Brad Hill. How did you see his game, and what was the plan? Was it purely to shut down Brad Hill, or was it to run off as well?
Yeah, well, I can't comment on Brad's game, but I thought Bailey was outstanding. He certainly, we forced him to move. Hilly in the end, Brad's role was to not just be a nullifier, but certainly the bounce out of their back end came from a different sector. But yeah, look, it was a credit to Bailey. It's probably that first role that I think from a defensive forward that he's played for us, and I thought he executed it to an absolute T.
David, can I get you to, look at the last fortnight compared to the previous fortnight and how you look at them, I guess, in a group like that? Just your performance in general, it seemed to be trending in the right direction. Probably the last couple of weeks you've gone backwards a little bit.
Yeah, no, I don't agree, Mark. I still think our trends going forward, I think if you have a look at our numbers in totality, I think it's a bit easy to just look at the scoreboard, I think. There are still parts of our game that we're growing and developing. I thought we battled back well in regards to clearances, contested ball, uncontested ball, sort of in the back end. So I think there's some markers in there, mate, that we're still reasonably happy with. I don't disagree with. I think the last fortnight we haven't been able to restrict teams and actually get a bit of scoreboard ourselves. So I think you're right in that sense. But I think overall we still feel like there's areas of growth that we've improved in, and they're probably more internal markers than they do look like, more so than just the raw numbers that come out.
I know you've probably been asked this one as well, probably a couple of times, but the Tom Campbell versus Tristan Sherry situation, I guess from the outside, we look in and see you're in a rebuilding stage, and obviously you don't want to have too many kids in the team, but just trying to understand why Sherry sort of is not getting in, and someone like Campbell, it's sort of towards the end of his career, is playing ahead of him at the moment.
Well, that's interesting. Tom's only 29. I'll pass that information on to him if you like. I think that's pretty unkind and unfair to make that comment in regards to Tom. And I've also been on record as saying that Tristan actually needs to do more. We're not going to give games away, mate. There's a scenario where we're playing 2 rucks. I think Tom's been pretty reasonable. I mean, even up until last week, we looked at Tristan coming in, but he hasn't, unfortunately, had enough time forward. Tom kicked 2 goals last week and was still pretty reasonable in regards to his movement around the ground and up forward and then in the ruck. There's no doubt that Tristan's putting some pressure on. I mean, the difficulty with this bit of shutdown at the moment is we're not able to get him, that ground time. But certainly he's pressing really hard, mate. There's no query around that. We're keen to play 2 rucks, and it's a matter of I guess there's a point where we'll have to make that decision. If one of TC or Gold is not performing well enough, then obviously X comes into the equation. So we're conscious of it. I understand what you're saying, but I also think there needs to be a bit of credit given to Tom as to how he's actually been performing as well.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not a disrespectful comment. It's more looking at where the side's at. That's where the question was more built towards.
Yeah. Oh, look, we've been working with Tristan really hard on his forward craft. And there's some areas that I think Tom probably leads a little bit more naturally in that sense and supports Nick down that end. So, look, I'm sure it won't be too long. I'm sure he'll keep chipping away and get his chance for sure.
Just on Bailey Scott, Brad Hill's obviously one of the more noted runners in the competition. Has Bailey got that capacity to be an offensive runner, or are you going to look at him as a run-with type player?
No, his pre-season, Pete, was really impressive. I thought he was in probably in the top 3 of our best runners. So he's certainly got that capacity and that running power. It had dropped off probably about a month ago. I think he's worked really hard behind the scenes. So no, we think he's got some really good capacity to do some offensive runs. Through the pre-season, we had him as a wing, but those high half forward roles, they're pretty demanding as well. So he's certainly got good capacity to generate either half forward or as a wing rotation. So they're probably the 2 spots that we still see him going forward in.
The injury list is quite long. I think Robbie Tarrant was supposed to play this week. How far away is he? Do you expect to regain anyone else sort of after the bye?
Yeah, we will, Owen. It'll be probably another 2 or 3 weeks until we get a couple more back. Robbie was due to play a half today, so we'll have to put our thinking hats on as to how we can get him through probably more the physical, the one-on-one stoppage work, turnover higher up the ground, defend quicker. So we'll have to think a bit laterally as to how we can get him, some of that training time. But yeah, he certainly comes, back into the frame. We just have to make sure. I think with such the long duration out, it's more the reconditioning. It's not so much the fact that he can't play, but I guess as coaching and high performance groups, we're just conscious of not exposing our guys to that ballistic risk from a muscular perspective. So that's the thing that we'll have to assess.
How's Ben Mackay?
Yeah, as far as I know, he's fine. I think he was a bit sore at the end, and we just no point putting him back on.
I thought did he have his hamstring strapped or no?
I don't know if it was so much a hammy, Pete. I haven't had the update from docs. I thought it might have been a bit more back related, but I'll get an overview from the guys. I think when we got to that point, there was probably not much point in rolling him back on. So yeah, I think he'll be fine from what I can gather.
David, you guys probably aren't. Sorry, you go, Pete.
No, I was just going to say, you guaranteed you're taking the bye this week. You haven't heard anything from the AFL that there might be a, reshuffle or anything like that?
Look, as it stands now, we've been told that the schedule for this week is the same, but that's at, what is it? That's only about 8 o'clock tonight. So who knows what will happen in the next couple of days. So, but look, if we have to move, we'll move. We understand that it's pretty fluid from that side of things. So we'll be ready to jump to another state if we need to. But at this point, I think we've been told to just it'll be as it is, the schedule as it is. So.
So in terms of giving guys a rest, on a bye week, you might have a few extra days off and stuff. Does that still happen, or do you need to keep training in preparation for potentially playing a game this week?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what this week does allow us to do is to train a bit more than normal. You normally go into a maintenance program, so we'll weigh that up. I still think if we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, and we'll still take the bye, then we'll still give our guys the 4-day break. They're required. They've worked pretty hard, so I just don't know what they're going to do around home for 4 days. Only so many lawns you can cut, and
we'll recommend a few Netflix programs for him, David.
Send them through, Pete. That'd be good. Thank you.
Just one from me. Aaron Hall seems to be a bit rejuvenated. What are you making of his season, David?
Yeah, no, he has, Pete. He's certainly helped us off that back end, no doubt. Credit to him. We sort of threw the challenge at him probably 6 weeks ago now, 6 or 7 weeks ago now. We we felt we just didn't quite have a bit of bounce to get us into the front half of the ground. We sort of talked to him about how we'd like the half-back role to be played. The two things is, one, you've got to defend your man, and then second is to be able to bounce and give us some run. So when, we can get him to find that sort of short target and that creates that option and overlap, it becomes really good. But he's also got the functionality to be able to kick it long and get it out of the danger zone. So, so credit to him. He's playing really consistently back there.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.